The December wind sliced through my coat like it wasn't even there. I'd been standing outside Luminosa for 20 minutes, watching couples in furs and cashmere glide through doors I'd only ever entered through the service entrance. My shift didn't start for another 10, but the cold felt safer than the apartment where the heating had been cut 3 days ago. Inside, the warmth hit like a wall. I peeled off my worn jacket and stuffed it into my locker, pulling on the black dress that marked me as invisible staff, not guest. The fabric was good quality, which only made the contrast sharper. I could look but never touch, serve but never taste. Table 42 needs water, Marco hissed, already rushing past with a tray of champagne flutes. VIP section, don't mess it up. I grabbed the crystal pitcher and wound through the dining room, keeping my eyes down. That's the trick, be present but forgettable. The Luminosa catered to Milan's elite, politicians, fashion moguls, the kind of wealth that didn't need to announce itself. And tonight, the energy felt different, sharper, like everyone was waiting for something. Table 42 sat in the corner alcove, half hidden by silk screens. I approached with the water, rehearsing the script in my head, "Good evening, may I," but froze when I saw them. 3 men in suits that cost more than my yearly rent. One older, silver-haired, laughing at something on his phone. 2 younger flanking him like bookends. But it was the fourth who stopped me cold. He wasn't looking at his companions. He was looking at me. Dark hair, darker eyes, a face that could have been carved from marble except for the slight quirk at the corner of his mouth. Not quite a smile. More like he found something amusing in my panic. His cologne reached me even from 3 feet away, cedar and something else, something that smelled like money and danger mixed into one. Water, my voice came out steadier than I felt. Please. His voice matched everything else about him, smooth, controlled, expensive. I poured, hyper-aware of my chapped hands, my plain face, the fact that I was the only thing in this room that didn't belong. When I finished, I turned to leave. Wait. I stopped, turned. His eyes hadn't left me. What's your name? Alina. It came out automatically, against every instinct that said stay invisible. Alina. He repeated it like he was testing how it sounded. Thank you, Alina. I fled back to the service corridor, my heart hammering. Marco caught my elbow. Did you do something to piss off Dante Caruso? Who? His eyes widened. You don't Jesus, Alina. That's Dante Caruso. He owns half the city. Maybe more than half, depending on who you ask. The name meant nothing to me, but the tone did. Marco looked genuinely scared. He owns Luminosa, I whispered. He owns the building Luminosa is in, and the building next door, and probably the bank that financed both. Marco shook his head. Stay away from that table. Let someone else handle it. But I couldn't. For the next 2 hours, every time I glanced toward the alcove, Dante Caruso was watching me. Not obviously, not in a way that others would notice, but I felt it like heat on my skin. At 9:45, my phone buzzed in my locker. I shouldn't have checked. Staff weren't supposed to have phones during shifts, but something made me look. Nana's nurse, emergency. I abandoned my station and ran to the back office, dialing with shaking fingers. The nurse answered in rapid-fire Italian, but I switched automatically to the language Nana had taught me, the one we spoke when it was just us. How bad? I asked in Russian, my throat tight. Her breathing, you need to come, now. I'm working, I can't just. Elena, the nurse's voice gentled, if you want to say goodbye, come now. The phone slipped from my hand. I caught it barely and became aware that I wasn't alone. Dante Caruso stood in the doorway. Your grandmother? He asked, still in Italian. I nodded, unable to form words. You speak Russian. Not a question, an observation. I waited for him to tell me to get back to work, to threaten my job, something. Instead, he pulled out his own phone. Where is she? San Rafael, but I can't afford. The taxi will take forever and I don't. My car is outside. He was already texting someone. Tell Marco you're leaving. I'll handle management. Why would you? He looked up and for the first time something other than amusement showed in his eyes, something almost human. My mother is deaf, has been since childhood. I know what it's like when language becomes a lifeline. He pocketed his phone. Your Russian is native, flawless. That's rare here. My grandmother raised me. Then we should go. The car was a black Mercedes with windows so dark I couldn't see inside until the driver opened the door. Leather seats, that same cedar scent, heat that actually worked. I sank into it like falling. Dante slid in beside me, said something low to the driver, and we pulled into traffic. I can't pay you back, I said, whatever this costs. I didn't offer you a loan. His gaze stayed on the window. I offered you a ride. Nothing's free. No, he turned then, and his eyes were unreadable. But sometimes the price isn't what you expect. We pulled up to the hospital in 12 minutes. He followed me inside without asking permission, his presence parting crowds like water. The nurse met us at the ward entrance, her face grave. Room 304. She's been asking for you. I ran. Nana looked so small in the bed, her skin paper-thin, her breathing labored. But when she saw me, her eyes cleared. Lisichka, she whispered, little fox, you came. I took her hand, switching to Russian without thinking. I'm here, I'm always here. Liar, but she smiled. You work too hard like your grandfather. Someone has to pay the bills. Some bills aren't worth paying. Her gaze drifted past me to where Dante stood in the doorway. Who is that? A friend, he drove me here. He looks expensive. Despite everything, I almost laughed. He is. Good, you deserve expensive things. Her grip tightened. Promise me something. Anything. Don't disappear into work. Don't make yourself invisible. I didn't raise a ghost. My throat closed. Nana. Promise. I promise. She relaxed then, her breathing easing slightly. The nurse checked her monitors and nodded at me. She's stable for now, but Alina, it won't be long. I stayed until midnight when Nana finally slept. Dante never left the hallway. When I emerged, he was reading something on his phone, his expression distant. Thank you, I said, for the ride, for waiting for. Come work for me. I stopped. What? You speak Russian like a native, Italian fluently, probably others. He pocketed his phone. I need a translator, someone I can trust. The pay is substantially better than Luminosa, and the hours are flexible enough that you can visit your grandmother whenever you need to. I don't understand. You don't know anything about me. I know you work yourself to exhaustion for someone you love. I know you hide competence behind invisibility. I know you understand the value of discretion. He stepped closer, and I caught that cedar scent again. Those are the qualities I need. What kind of translation work? Business, contracts, negotiations. A pause. Some of my associates prefer Russian for sensitive discussions. There was more he wasn't saying. I could feel it in the weight of his words. What's the catch? The catch is that once you enter my world, leaving becomes complicated. His gaze held mine. But staying also comes with protection, resources. Your grandmother could have private care, the best doctors. Whatever time she has left would be comfortable. I thought of Nana in that sterile room, of the bills piling up, of the cold apartment and the job that barely covered rent. How much time do I have to decide? None. He handed me a card with an address. Tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. bring your passport and your grandmother's medical records. Then he walked away, leaving me alone in the fluorescent hallway with a decision that felt less like choice and more like fate reaching out its hand. I looked down at the card, heavy stock, embossed lettering, an address in the city's most exclusive district. What had Nana said? You deserve expensive things. Maybe, but I had a feeling expensive things came with expensive consequences. I pocketed the card and went home to the cold apartment, where I didn't sleep at all. The address led to a building of glass and steel, the kind where doormen wore better suits than most of the men I'd ever dated. I gave my name, expecting resistance, but the man simply nodded and directed me to a private elevator. "Top floor, Mr. Caruso is expecting you." The elevator rose smoothly, silently. My reflection stared back from polished brass, rumpled coat, circles under my eyes, hair I'd barely managed to tame. I looked like exactly what I was, a waitress pretending to belong somewhere she didn't. The doors opened to a reception area that belonged in a magazine. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Milan, furniture that probably cost more than my yearly salary, art that might have been real. A woman in her 50s looked up from a sleek desk. "Elena Volkov." I nodded. "I'm Sophia, Mr. Caruso's assistant." She stood, gesturing down a hallway. "He's finishing a call. May I see your documents?" I handed over the folder. She flipped through with professional efficiency, then smiled. "Excellent. Would you like coffee while you wait?" "I'm fine, thank you." "Of course." She indicated a seating area. "It shouldn't be long." I perched on the edge of a chair, too nervous to lean back. Through an open door, I could hear Dante's voice, low, controlled, speaking rapid French. The words were too quick for me to follow completely, but the tone was clear. Someone was being told no, and they weren't happy about it. The call ended. Silence stretched for a moment, then footsteps. Dante appeared in the doorway, and I stood automatically. In daylight, without the dim romance of Luminosa, he looked even more dangerous, sharper, like something that could cut you without trying. "Elena, you came. You made it sound urgent." "It is," he nodded to Sophia. "Hold my calls for an hour." "Of course." He led me into his office. More windows, more art, a desk that could have doubled as a dining table. But what caught my attention was the wall of photographs. Family, I realized. A woman with kind eyes, children at various ages, and in several frames, a beautiful older woman making signs with her hands. "Your mother," I said. "Yes," he followed my gaze. "She lost her hearing at 7, viral infection. My father never learned to sign properly, but she taught us, my sister and me." His expression softened fractionally. Communication became everything. I understood then why he'd noticed me speaking Russian. Languages were bridges, and he'd spent his life building them. "Sit," he gestured to a chair across from his desk. "Let's discuss terms." "I haven't agreed yet." "Then let's discuss what agreement would look like." He pulled out a folder, thicker than mine, and slid it across the desk. Inside, I found a contract. The salary made my breath catch. 3 times what I made at Luminosa, benefits, travel stipend, and at the bottom, a clause about family medical care. "This says you'll cover all expenses related to my grandmother's treatment." "Yes." "Why?" "Because if you're worried about bills, you won't focus on the work. I need focus." He leaned back. "This isn't charity, Elena, it's strategy." "What exactly is the work?" "Translation primarily. Russian to Italian, Italian to Russian. Sometimes English or French if needed. You'll accompany me to meetings, dinners, occasional travel. You'll take notes, observe, and report anything that seems unusual." "You want me to spy?" "I want you to listen. There's a difference." His gaze didn't waver. "My business operates in gray areas. Some of my associates operate in darker ones. I need someone who can hear what's not being said. And if I hear something illegal, then you tell me and I handle it." He paused. "I won't lie to you, Elena. Some of what you'll encounter exists outside conventional boundaries, but I have rules. No civilians, no coercion, no unnecessary violence." "Unnecessary implies some violence is necessary." "In my world, yes." He didn't apologize for it. The question is whether you can live with that ambiguity in exchange for security. I thought of Nana, of the coal department, of spending my life invisible while people like Dante moved through the world taking what they wanted. I need to visit my grandmother every day. Agreed. And I need to know I can leave if this becomes something I can't ethically accept. His expression shifted, not quite a smile, but something close. You have 60 days. After that, you'll know too much for clean separation, but we can negotiate terms if you want out. 60 days. 2 months to decide if I could stomach proximity to power that didn't ask permission. One more thing, I said. If you try to threaten me, manipulate me, or make me feel like I owe you anything beyond my work, I walk. Immediately. Now he did smile, noted. I picked up the pen and signed before I could change my mind. The first week passed in a blur of meetings I barely understood. Dante moved through his world with the ease of someone born to it, and I trailed behind taking notes, translating phrases that seemed innocuous but felt weighted with meaning. He's asking about the shipment timeline, I murmured during a dinner with Russian partners. Dante nodded slightly. Tell him we guarantee delivery within the week. I translated. The man Volkov, no relation, grunted approval, but his associate, younger and sharper, watched me with interest. Your Russian is impressive, he said, switching languages. Moscow. St. Petersburg, my grandmother. Ah, the cultured accent, he smiled. Dante, you found a gem. I'm aware, Dante said mildly in Italian. After they left, he drove me to San Rafael. This had become routine, work during the day, hospital at night, then home to an apartment that felt less cold now that bills were paid. He never commented on the visits, never rushed me. Just waited in the car or occasionally in the hallway, reading emails on his phone. Tonight, though, Nana was awake and alert when I arrived. You look better, she said in Russian, less like a ghost. I'm eating regularly now. Because of the expensive man. I told her about the job, if not the details. His name is Dante. Italian. Very. She made a thoughtful noise. Your grandfather worked for an Italian man once, in St. Petersburg before we came here. He was complicated. Complicated how? Powerful, generous, dangerous. She squeezed my hand. But he kept his word. That mattered in a world where few did. I wanted to ask more, but the nurse appeared with evening medications. Nana's eyes drifted closed, and I sat with her until she slept. Dante was in the hallway when I emerged, but he wasn't alone. The woman from the photograph stood beside him, her hands moving in fluid signs. She stopped when she saw me, her gaze curious. Dante signed something, then spoke aloud. Elena, this is my mother, Isabella. Mama, Elena Volkov, my new translator. Isabella's face lit up. She signed rapidly. She says she's heard good things, Dante translated, and she wants to know if you sign. I hesitated, then lifted my hands. It had been years since Nana taught me. She'd learned when she'd volunteered at a school in St. Petersburg, but muscle memory kicked in. A little, I signed slowly. I'm very rusty. Isabella's expression transformed. She signed back, faster now, and I caught maybe half of it. Something about how rare it was, how wonderful, how she'd love to practice with me. She's thrilled, Dante said, his voice carrying a warmth I'd never heard before. She doesn't get to sign with many people outside family. I'd be happy to practice, I signed to Isabella, then spoke aloud so Dante could translate. If I make mistakes, please correct me. Isabella took my hands in hers, squeezing gently. Then she signed something directly to Dante, her expression pointed. He actually flushed. Mama. She signed again, sharper. What did she say? I asked. She said I should bring you to dinner, properly, not as an employee. He cleared his throat. I told her it was inappropriate. Isabella rolled her eyes. a gesture that needed no translation, and signed once more before kissing his cheek and walking away. "And that," I prompted. She said appropriate is overrated. He shook his head. "My mother believes in direct communication." I noticed. We walked to the elevator in silence. But when the doors closed, trapping us in the small space, Dante turned to me. "You didn't mention you could sign. You didn't ask." "I'm asking now, where did you learn?" "My grandmother volunteered at a deaf school in St. Petersburg. She taught me when I was young. We used to practice at home when—" I trailed off. "When?" "When my grandfather would come home angry. Signing meant we could talk without him hearing." Dante's jaw tightened. "He hurt you?" "No, but he hurt Nana sometimes. With words mostly. She said signing gave her a language he couldn't take away." I met his gaze. "I understand what you meant about communication being everything. Sometimes it's the only power you have." The elevator doors opened. We stepped into the lobby, into the December cold that still bit despite my new coat, purchased with my first paycheck, proper and warm. "Dinner," Dante said abruptly. "Tomorrow not work, just dinner. With your mother. If you want, or without, your choice." I should have said no, should have kept the boundaries clear, but something in his expression, vulnerable in a way I'd never seen, made me pause. "With your mother," I decided. "I'd like to get to know her." His smile was brief but genuine. "She'll like that." He opened the car door, and I slid inside, wondering what exactly I'd just agreed to, and why it felt less like crossing a line and more like stepping through a door I couldn't close again. The dinner happened at Dante's home, a villa in the hills overlooking Milan, all stone and glass and careful elegance. Isabella greeted me at the door with a hug, signing her welcome so quickly I had to ask her to repeat it. "She's excited," Dante translated, though his mother's expression made that clear. "She rarely has guests who can sign." The evening unfolded like something from another life. Isabella cooked, actually cooked, refusing help, while Dante poured wine and I set the table. We ate in the dining room overlooking the city lights, conversation flowing between signs and speech. Isabella told stories about Dante as a child, signing with dramatic flair. He protested mildly, but I could see the affection between them, solid as stone. This wasn't the dangerous man from business dinners. This was someone's son, someone's family. After dinner, Isabella made coffee and disappeared to take a phone call, leaving Dante and me alone on the terrace. The December air was cold but tolerable, the city spread below like scattered jewels. "Your mother is wonderful," I said. "She likes you, that's rare." He sipped his wine. "She's usually suspicious of people I bring around." "Do you bring people around often?" "No." The word hung between us. I should have left it there, but something made me push. "Why me?" He turned, his expression serious. "Because you're real. Most people in my world wear masks so often they forget what their actual face looks like. But you," he paused, "you don't pretend to be anything you're not." "I pretend all the time, at work with clients." "That's performance. I mean you don't pretend your feelings. When you're angry, I see it. When you're uncomfortable, I know. When you signed with my mother tonight, the joy on your face was genuine." His gaze held mine. "That's dangerous in my world, but it's also necessary for me." I didn't know what to say to that, so I said nothing, just stood beside him watching the city breathe. "Elena," his voice was quiet, "I need to tell you something." My stomach tightened. "What?" "There's a complication with one of my Russian partners, Volkov, the man from the dinner last week." He set down his glass. "He's asking questions about you, where you're from, who your family is." "Why would he care?" "Because information is currency and you're connected to me now." He turned fully toward me. "I need to know if there's anything in your past that could be used. Any debts, any associations, anything at all." I thought of Nana's comment about grandfather's Italian employer. My grandfather worked in St. Petersburg, security for wealthy clients. He died when I was 12. Name: Mikhail Volkov. I saw his expression change. What? Volkov isn't asking random questions. He knows exactly who you are. Dante's voice was tight. Your grandfather worked for my father. They were friends, or as close to friends as men in that world could be. The terrorist tilted. That's not possible. My father ran operations in St. Petersburg before expanding here. He died 10 years ago, but his legacy. He shook his head. Volkov thinks I'm using you as leverage. A Volkov working for a Caruso. He sees it as either strategy or insult. I'm neither, I'm just... You're my translator, my mother's friend. He stopped. Someone I trust, but in his world trust is the most dangerous weapon. I backed away from the railing. What does he want? A meeting, with you present to prove you're there by choice, not coercion. Dante moved closer. I won't force you. If you want to walk away now, I'll arrange protection, make sure you and your grandmother are safe. But if you stay, this gets more complicated, deeper. His hand came up hesitant, then touched my cheek so gently I barely felt it. I should let you go. It would be smarter, safer, but I don't want to. His thumb brushed my cheekbone. I should have stepped back. Should have remembered every reason this was a terrible idea. Instead, I leaned into the touch. What do you want? I whispered. I want you to stay. I want my mother to keep teaching you signs. I want to come home to someone who sees me instead of my reputation. He exhaled. I want things I have no right to want. Dante. He kissed me, gentle, questioning, giving me every chance to pull away. But I didn't. I kissed him back, tasting wine and warmth and something that felt dangerously like hope. When we broke apart, his forehead rested against mine. This is a terrible idea, he murmured. Probably. You should run. I know. But you won't. No, I opened my eyes, met his gaze. I won't. His smile was brief, almost sad. Then we're both fools. Isabella appeared in the doorway, signing something quick. Dante stiffened. What? I asked. Volkov is here now. He turned to me. You don't have to do this. But I thought of Nana, of grandfather's stories about honor and keeping your word even when the world didn't. I thought of Isabella's warmth, of Dante's careful honesty. Yes, I said, I do. Volkov wasn't alone. He brought 2 men, guards, obviously, and a woman about my age with calculating eyes. They settled in Dante's study like they owned it, and I felt the shift in energy immediately. This wasn't a business meeting. This was a test. Elena Volkov, the older man said in Russian. Mikhail's granddaughter, you look like him. I wouldn't know. I barely remember him. He was a good man, loyal. Volkov's gaze flicked to Dante, which makes this situation interesting. There's no situation, Dante said in Russian, showing off, I realized, proving he understood every word. Elena works for me because she's qualified. Her family connection is coincidence. Coincidence, Volkov smiled without warmth. In our world there are no coincidences, only strategy. The woman leaned forward, speaking for the first time. Your grandfather owed Dante's father a debt when he died. Medical expenses, relocation costs. Did you know that? I looked at Dante. His expression was carefully neutral. No, I said slowly, I didn't. 10,000 euros, with interest closer to 15 now. She pulled out a paper, slid it across. This is the original contract, signed by Mikhail Volkov, witnessed by Antonio Caruso. My hands shook as I picked it up. The signature was grandfather's. I recognized it from old documents Nana kept. The date was 3 months before he died. Dante paid for my grandfather's treatment. Antonio did, Volkov corrected, but debts transfer. When Antonio died, his son inherited obligations and assets. His smile sharpened. including yours. The room spun. I looked at Dante, searching for denial, for explanation, but he just watched me with that same careful neutrality. Is this true? I asked in Italian. The debt is real, he said quietly, but I didn't hire you because of it. Then why didn't you tell me? Because I knew how it would look. Volkov laughed. How it looks is exactly what it is. A Caruso collecting on a Volkov debt, very traditional. I stood, the paper crumpling in my hand. I'm not a debt to be collected. No, Dante agreed, standing as well. You're not. Then what am I? He didn't answer. Couldn't, maybe, not with Volkov watching like a hawk spotting prey. I'll pay it, I said. The 15,000, I'll need time, but... 20 years, the woman interrupted. At your current salary, minus living expenses, approximately 20 years. Then 20 years. Or, Volkov said softly, you could acknowledge what you are, what your grandfather was, what this arrangement actually represents. He stood, straightening his jacket. But perhaps you need time to consider. Dante will be in touch. He left, his people following. The silence in the study felt suffocating. Elena. Don't, I held up a hand. I need to think. Let me explain. You had weeks to explain. Weeks to tell me about this debt, this connection. Instead, you let me believe, my throat closed. You let me believe I earned this, that I was chosen for my skills. You were. And the debt was just a convenient bonus, I laughed bitterly. God, I'm so stupid. All of this, the salary, the medical care, the dinners with your mother, it was just you collecting what you were owed. No, he moved toward me, but I backed away. Elena, listen to me. The debt existed, yes, but I didn't hire you because of it. I didn't kiss you because of it. You what, Dante? I fell for you. The words came out rough, almost angry. I fell for you the moment you switched languages to take care of your grandmother, when you signed with my mother, when you looked at me like I was human instead of just a name. The debt didn't matter. It doesn't matter. It matters to me. I grabbed my coat. I need to go. Let me drive you. No, I'll take a cab. I paused at the door. I need to figure out who I am without you deciding for me. I left before he could respond. Isabella appeared in the hallway as I passed, her face worried. She signed something, "Are you okay?" And I shook my head, not trusting myself to respond. Outside, the December air cut through my coat. I walked for blocks before finding a taxi, and spent the entire ride home crying so hard I couldn't breathe. Nana was asleep when I arrived at San Rafael. I sat beside her bed, holding her hand, and wondered how many lies I'd been living inside. When she woke near midnight, she took one look at my face and sighed. The expensive man. Turns out I was the expensive thing. 15,000 euros expensive. I told her everything. The debt, the contract, Volkov's accusations. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Your grandfather loved Antonio Caruso, she said finally. Not as a boss, as a brother. When we needed to leave Russia, when the money ran out, Antonio didn't loan us funds. He gave them, said family didn't keep ledgers. But there's a contract. Written later, when Mikkel insisted. He couldn't accept charity. She squeezed my hand. Your grandfather died believing that debt would be forgiven, that Antonio's son would understand the difference between obligation and choice. Then why didn't Dante tell me? Because men are foolish. They think protection looks like control. Her eyes gleamed. But you're not helpless, Lisichka. You choose what this debt means, no one else. I stayed until dawn, then took a cab to my apartment. Dante had called 17 times, texted more. I ignored them all, climbed into bed, and slept until my phone rang again. Not Dante, Sophia. Mr. Caruso needs you at a meeting in 2 hours. It's urgent. Tell him to find another translator. Elena, her voice gentled. He's meeting with the city's financial regulators. If you're not there, they'll assume he has something to hide. Volkov engineered this. If Dante appears weak, unraveling, people will move against him, against his family. I closed my eyes. Why does he need a translator for Italian regulators? He doesn't. He needs you to show that you're still with him, that Volkov's implications are false. So I'm a prop. You're a statement, a pause, but only if you choose to be. I thought of Isabella's kindness, of Dante's careful honesty about his world's dangers, of the fact that he'd told me I could leave, even knowing what it would cost him. Where and when? Palazzo Central, 2 hours. I arrived with 5 minutes to spare, wearing the best suit I owned, purchased with my second paycheck, professional and sharp. Dante stood on the palazzo steps with Sophia and 2 lawyers. His relief when he saw me was brief but obvious. You came. I came. I handed him a folder. My resignation, effective immediately after this meeting. His jaw tightened. Elena. I'll finish what you hired me for. I'll make sure your regulators see that I'm here by choice, not coercion. But after that, we're done. I met his gaze. You want me to choose? Fine. I'm choosing myself. Not your debt, not your world, me. He looked like I'd struck him, but he nodded. Fair enough. The meeting was theater. The regulators asked pointed questions about Dante's operations, his associates, his finances. I translated when necessary, took notes, and generally looked professional and unbothered. When they circled back to questions about my employment, clearly fed to them by Volkov, I answered with perfect composure. Mr. Caruso offered me a job. I accepted. My grandfather's past relationship with his father is irrelevant to my qualifications. And you're here willingly. I'm here professionally. There's a difference. I smiled tightly. If you're asking whether I'm coerced, the answer is no. Mr. Caruso has been nothing but honorable in his dealings with me. It was technically true, every word. But I could feel Dante watching me, understanding what I wasn't saying. Honorable didn't mean transparent. The meeting ended. The regulators left with nothing actionable, which meant Dante won. But he didn't look victorious. He looked tired. Thank you, he said in the hallway. You're welcome. Sophia will have my official resignation by tomorrow. Elena, please. Don't. I kept my voice level. You asked what I wanted earlier. I want transparency, honesty, to know that I'm valued for who I am, not what I represent. I paused. You couldn't give me that, so we're done. I walked away before I could change my mind, and this time he didn't follow. I spent 3 days in limbo, working my notice at Dante's office, visiting Nana, avoiding conversations with anyone who might ask what happened. Sophia accepted my resignation without comment, processed my final paycheck, and politely ignored the fact that I cried in the bathroom twice. On the 4th day, Nana's nurse called. You should come. I ran. She was awake but fatting, her breathing shallow. When she saw me, she smiled. Lisichka, sit. I pulled the chair close, taking her hand. I'm tired, she said simply. Ready. Don't say that, the doctors said. The doctors don't matter, I'm telling you, she squeezed weakly. But first, a story about your grandfather and Antonio. Nana, rest. Listen. Her voice carried an echo of its old strength. When Mikkel needed to leave Russia, it wasn't just about money. He'd witnessed something dangerous. Antonio helped us disappear, but more, he gave Mikkel purpose. Work that mattered. They became brothers. What did grandfather witness? Corruption, murder, things that would have gotten him killed if he'd stayed. Her eyes closed briefly. Antonio said debts between brothers don't count, that family protects family. When he died, Dante inherited that philosophy. Your grandfather's debt to Antonio became Antonio's son's promise to protect you. That contract Volkov showed you. It was Antonio's way of formalizing care for us after he was gone. The room tilted. What are you saying? I'm saying the debt isn't what you think. It's not collection. It's obligation on Dante's side, not yours. He's honor-bound to protect you because his father promised to protect us. She opened her eyes. So when he hired you, paid for my care, brought you into his life, he wasn't collecting. He was fulfilling a promise he probably didn't even fully understand until you walked into his restaurant. But he didn't tell me. Because men are fools, she repeated. They think secrets look like protection, but maybe, she coughed weakly, maybe he was trying to let you choose without obligation, to see him, to be with him because you wanted to, not because you felt you owed him. I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. Go to him, Nana whispered. Don't waste time the way I did. Don't let pride keep you from love. I love you, I choked out. I know, and I love you. But I'm leaving soon, Lisichka. I need to know you won't be alone. I won't, I promise. She nodded, satisfied, and closed her eyes. Good, now go, let an old woman sleep. I kissed her forehead and left. Outside, I called Sophia. I need to see Dante, now. He's at the villa, but Alina, he's with Volkov. The situation has escalated. My stomach dropped. What does that mean? It means come quickly. The villa looked the same, but the energy was wrong. Dark cars in the drive, men in suits on the perimeter. I pushed past them, through the door, following voices to the study. Dante stood behind his desk, Volkov across from him. Isabella sat to one side, her face pale but composed. Several other men filled the room, associates, guards, witnesses. Alina, Dante's relief was naked. You shouldn't be here. Your assistant said it was escalating. Volkov is demanding resolution. His voice was tight. He claims my hearing you represents an insult to your grandfather's memory, that I'm dishonoring the original debt by treating you as an employee rather than family. That's insane. That's strategy, Volkov corrected. In our world, debts between families are sacred. Antonio promised to care for the Volkovs. Instead, his son turned Mikkel's granddaughter into staff. It's a statement, one that can't be ignored. I looked at Dante. What does he want? Me to acknowledge the debt structure formally, to formalize your place in my life under my protection as was originally intended. Dante's expression was anguished. He wants me to declare you family, not employee, not contract, family. And if you don't? He claims the right to challenge my operations, to call in debts, freeze assets, make life difficult for my mother, my sister, everyone I protect. He paused. It's a power play. He's trying to force my hand by using you. I turned to Volkov. This isn't about honor, it's about control. It's about both, he shrugged. Dante's position has made him complacent. This reminds him that every connection is also a vulnerability. Then hear this. I stepped forward. My grandfather's debt to Antonio was paid in loyalty, in years of service, in brotherhood. There is no debt. There is no obligation. There is only, I paused, meeting Dante's eyes, only what I choose. And what do you choose? Volkov asked. I choose him. The words came out steady, clear. Not because of contracts or debts or family history, because he's honest about his world's ugliness, because he let me walk away even when it cost him, because he's trying to protect people even when protection looks like control. I turned to Dante, because I love him, and that's not something you can put in a contract. The room went silent. Isabella's face transformed into joy, her hands moving in quick signs. Dante circled the desk slowly. You left. I left because I was scared, because I thought I was a transaction. I met him halfway. But Nana told me the truth about the promise, about your father's intention. You weren't collecting a debt. You were keeping one. I should have told you. Yes, I touched his face. But I understand why you didn't. You were giving me the choice to see you without obligation. That was kind, misguided but kind. He pulled me close, his forehead against mine. I don't deserve you. Probably not, I smiled through tears, but you're stuck with me anyway. Behind us, Volkov sighed dramatically. Touching, truly. But this doesn't resolve the structural issue. Dante, do you formally acknowledge responsibility for Alina Volkov as family? Dante lifted his head, keeping me close. I acknowledge that I love her, that I will protect her and her grandmother with everything I have, that she has a place in my life, in my home, in my heart, if she wants it, not because of debt but because I choose her. He paused. Is that formal enough? Volkov looked at me. And you accept this protection, this claim? I accept partnership, I corrected. Not ownership, not obligation. If Donnie wants me in his life, it's because we choose each other. Every day, that's how this works. For a long moment, Volkov studied us. Then he smiled, genuine this time. Your grandfather would have liked that answer. Very well. The debt is satisfied. Consider this matter closed. He left with his people, and the room emptied until it was just Dante, Isabella, and me. Isabella signed something rapid and enthusiastic. She says, "Welcome to the family," Dante translated, and that we're both idiots for taking so long. I laughed, slightly hysterical. She's not wrong. Isabella hugged me, signed something else, then tactfully disappeared. What did she say? I asked. She said she's going to teach you every embarrassing story about me she knows. He pulled me back against him. Also that she's never seen me this happy. Are you happy? Terrified, he corrected, but yes, happy. I turned in his arms. My grandmother is dying soon, maybe days. I know. And I still don't really understand your world. The parts you can't tell me, the dangers you manage. I know that too. And I still resigned. I can't be your translator anymore. It muddies things. So we'll find you something else, something that's yours. He brushed hair from my face. Whatever you want, Alina. I meant what I said. I'm not trying to control you. I'm trying to love you. There's a difference. Then love me, I whispered. But let me love you back as an equal, as a partner. Deal. He kissed me then, deep, claiming but also offering. And I kissed him back, choosing this dangerous, complicated, beautiful thing we were building together. Nana died 3 days later peacefully, with me holding one hand and Dante holding the other. Isabella came for the service, signing prayers alongside Dante's spoken ones. We buried her next to grandfather in Milan's Russian Orthodox cemetery, under gray December skies that felt appropriate for goodbye. Afterward, back at the villa, I found a box on the bed. Inside, papers transferring Nana's medical debts to zero balance, a bank book showing a fund in my name, enough to live on for years, and a note in Dante's handwriting. Not payment, not debt, a foundation. Build whatever you want on it, D. I found him on the terrace where he'd first kissed me. He turned when I approached, uncertain. Thank you, I said. It's not enough. It's perfect, I showed him the note. A foundation, I like that. What will you build? I thought about Nana, about grandfather's old stories, about invisible people who deserve to be seen. A translation service. For immigrants, refugees, people who need language bridges but can't afford them. I'll charge clients like you to subsidize the ones who can't pay. His smile was slow and warm. That's perfect. Your mother can help. She knows sign language teachers, deaf communities. We could expand it. She'd love that. We stood together watching the city lights, and I thought about choices and debts and the difference between obligation and love. Dante. Yes. I need to know one thing, total honesty. He tensed, all right. The night we met, when you first saw me, was it the Russian you heard or was it me? He turned, his expression serious. It was you. The Russian made me listen. But it was you, the way you moved through invisibility like it was armor, the way you loved fiercely enough to brave hospital calls during work. That's what caught me. He paused. Everything after was me trying to find reasons to keep you close. The debt was convenient, but I would have found another way. That's what I needed to hear. Truth. Always. He pulled me close, and we stayed there as December gave way toward January, toward the difficult work of building something real from the ashes of secrets and debts and complicated histories. It wouldn't be easy. His world still operated in shadows, still made choices I wouldn't always agree with. But we'd face it together, with boundaries, with honesty, with the kind of love that chose partnership over possession. Nana would have approved, and in the end, that mattered more than any contract. Epilogue 2 years later. The Translation Center occupied 3 floors of a renovated building in Milan's immigrant quarter. My office sat on the top floor, windows overlooking streets where a dozen languages mixed like music. Isabella's sign language courses ran in the East Wing. We'd added employment counseling last month, legal aid next month. I signed the last grant application and stretched, bones popping. Outside, early March sunshine made the city glow. My phone buzzed. Dante, dinner at home, Mama's cooking. Me perfect, I'll bring wine. Home. The word still felt new, even after 18 months of living at the villa, of sharing space and meals and the 1,000 tiny negotiations that made up a life together. We'd married quietly last fall, just Isabella, Sophia, and a handful of friends. No spectacle, no performance, just choice. His work had shifted too. More legitimate enterprises, fewer shadows. It would never be completely clean, his world didn't work that way, but he'd drawn hard lines. No civilians, no coercion. He kept those promises. I packed my bag and headed downstairs, where our office manager waved a message at me. Woman looking for translation services, Russian to Italian, says it's about family debts. I froze, send her up. She was young, maybe 20, with Nana's cheekbones and grandfather's eyes. When she saw me, she gasped. You're Elena Volkov. Yes. I'm Natasha. Mikhail Volkov was my great-grandfather. Your grandfather and mine were brothers. She pulled out papers. I found these in my grandmother's things. Letters between Mikhail and Antonio Caruso. I thought, maybe they were important. I took them with shaking hands. Grandfather's handwriting, Antonio's responses, years of correspondence about family, honor, the difference between debts and promises. They are, I said quietly, very important. Would you like some tea? I think we have a lot to talk about. She smiled, relief and hope mixed together, and followed me into the conference room. Later at dinner, I showed Dante the letters. He read them slowly, his expression shifting. My father really did see them as family, he murmured. This isn't obligation, it's love. I know, I leaned against him. Your father was teaching you something, about the difference between collecting debts and honoring them. I'm a slow learner. But you learned, I kissed his temple, that's what matters. Isabella brought out dessert, signing questions about Natasha. I answered in signs that were now fluent, natural. The language Nana had given me, that I'd shared with Dante's mother, that connected us all across silence. Outside, Milan hummed with life. Somewhere, people were working invisible jobs, speaking languages no one heard, building lives from scraps of choice and hope. Tomorrow, I'd help a few of them. Next week, a few more. From cold anonymity to warm chosen home, from debt to partnership, from invisible to seen. Nana would have called it a good trade, and she would have been right. The December night when Dante first watched me pour water felt like another lifetime, but also like yesterday. Both things were true, time passing and moments staying, just like debts that became promises, like obligations that transformed into love. I thought about grandfather and Antonio, about the bridge they built between families and languages and worlds, about how their sons and granddaughters inherited not just their debts, but their capacity for seeing people as human first, transactions never. What are you thinking? Dante asked. I laced my fingers through his. That some things are worth the complications, That love and choice aren't opposites. That home is what you build, not where you start. He kissed my hand. Wise woman. I learned from the best. Isabella signed something and we both laughed. She'd said, "Stop being sentimental and eat your dessert." So we did, together, choosing each moment, each day, each complicated, beautiful piece of the life we'd built from promises and choices, and the slow, patient work of turning debts into love. Outside, the city breathed on, and inside we were warm.